Pope Francis recently made his first ever visit to the United States. The Pope announced that during a special year of mercy, women may be forgiven for what the church sees as a sin of abortion. Gwyneth Dolan sat down with Alan Sanchez from the New Mexico Conference of Catholic Bishops to talk about this announcement and the other social justice issues raised by Pope Francis during his visit to the U.S.
Alan Sanchez, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
You were just in Washington and Philadelphia for the first ever American visit of Pope Francis, who was met with hordes of fans and followers from all over the world even, and nonstop media coverage. What was your experience like?
Oh, my experience, it was like being on a retreat for a week. Because we went from event to event with him, and because of the position, the State Catholic Conference directors had passes to have more access and closer up. But his talks, what he brought to America, the message, and I think it was brilliant. He didn't come to scold us or pontificate to us. He came to remind us who we are, especially in Congress when he chooses to mention 4 Americans. He's reminding us who we are. At the White House, when he comes to speak, he talked about Martin Luther King. He's reminding us who we are. And there's values as Americans that we have that we share. And I think tapping into those and saying, look, when we take care of each other, and then at the state capitol, there's a relief of Moses, and or at the U.S. Capitol, and there's a relief of Moses. And when he brings Moses into it, you're able to cover a lot greater group of people, and that where our common ground is. And he's able to find the common ground, and he doesn't get paralyzed by our differences. Some leaders get paralyzed when they encounter differences, okay? But he doesn't. He's able to find the common ground, pull us together, and where together in a dialogue, because he uses that a lot, are we going to find the common good? And so he wasn't here in America to find fans. He was here to find dialogue and to open a path, not just with him and the church, but among each other, as he was challenging the representatives and senators to work across the aisles. We have to come together, and this is what he's saying. But he has an urgent message. Now,
let me say, he didn't come here to find fans, but they found him.
Oh, they found him. It's kind of like, on St. Patrick's Day, everybody's Irish, or Cinco de Mayo, everybody's Mexican and sharing a beer.
Well, one person who is not Catholic but did seek an audience with him was Kim Davis, the Kentucky County Clerk, who has become the face of opposition to same-sex marriage. Vatican officials kept this meeting quiet. They did not publicize it, but they did acknowledge that they met. What message do you take away from his meeting with this prominent opponent of same-sex marriage?
I don't take a message, because the church isn't giving a message. When the Pope speaks, he's very clear, and he hasn't spoken on this. He met with many people. He met with many people that were believers and non-believers. But what was important when he's making a message is when he's at that podium and he's delivering a message that he wants us to hear. So he welcomed her, and I find that to be just like Francis. Welcoming people. And as you know, he'd break away from the plan. He's supposed to get on the little Fiat, and instead he's going to the barrier again to meet people, to meet them where they're at. And but to regard to that, what's important that he did speak about on the plane, now, he doesn't talk about an individual case, but on returning to Rome with the reporters, he said, conscience is important, and we have to respect that, because that's another right. And so it's just like with a conscientious objector in war. We have to be able to protect those things. So in this sense, she's working from her conscience, and there's got to be some respect for that, or on that. Now, can she impose that on other people? That's a different argument. And he says that conscience, our conscience is important for every single person, Catholic or non-Catholic. As human beings, as we live in a society and to be civilized, we have to respect conscience.
Now, Pope Francis has attracted many fans from an unlikely source, American liberals, who are attracted to his message on climate change, immigration, and income inequality. Why is he advancing this message now?
Well, it's a message of the church that's always been there. Francis hasn't said anything new. He's just repackaged it. Nothing new. Yes, the Pope is Catholic, and he knows our traditional values, and he's keeping to those. But there's something happening that's in front of us. And Laudato Si, this is the encyclical that he wrote. And this now becomes part of the teaching of the church. This isn't just a speech he gave. an encyclical becomes part of the teaching of the church. And this is where he's finding support and then he's finding opposition. Something's happening to us. Scientists have agreed, and I know there's those saying that scientists are saying there is not climate change, but the ones who do work with climate, they're saying we are headed to a catastrophe. And the Holy Father is saying we can't deny that anymore. There is a catastrophe coming. And I know many conservatives were looking for him to speak more about abortion, and he did talk about the dignity of the human being. But let me put it in simple terms so we understand this. There is a very big abortion coming. The planet is about to abort us. We're about to be scrubbed off the planet. The capability of this beautiful place to support human life is about to come to an end. And it's coming faster than we think. And he said, we cannot push this off to the next generation. So why would some not like this? Because in an encyclical, he talks about this affects the poor, and it's economic. So when we talk about great giant corporations that are making money, this is where the opposition really comes. Making money. It's not profit. Gwyneth, what is profit? Profit is the sum after subtracting the cost, all right? So you have the cost, subtract the cost, and what remains is profit. But corporations aren't making profit. They're accumulating large amounts of money because you haven't finished paying for it. When we buy cheap things, and we love, as Americans, we love cheap things. Now, I'm going to mention it, Walmart. We love the Walmart because it's cheap, but you haven't finished paying for it because the state's subsidizing, but with SNAP, you know, we're subsidizing that. Or the mine in Colorado, the Animas. That cheap gold that was mined out of there, we haven't finished paying for it. We're paying for it now. We're going to have to clean up the river. Pork, New Mexicans and chicharrones. Who doesn't like chicharrones? We love our cheap pork in America, but we haven't finished paying for it because of the pollution from those lagoons, from the discharge from those farms, because you have so many sows in one spot that's washed off daily into lagoons. You got liquid, liquid fertilizer going into rivers, and we haven't finished paying for it. So to say we're making this profit, that's not true and honest anymore. It's me saying we're able to accumulate by exploitation these great amounts of money. And this is affecting the poor. But the climate change affects the people in the center of the earth first, because along the equator is where the warming is happening more. And we know in the north of the rich countries, closer you get to the equator, they're poorer countries. In a nutshell, that's what it is. And this has sparked a lot of opposition because huge corporations have been making a lot of money by having a disregard for our environment. Flipping the switch is now a moral issue. And it's a moral issue in the same way we talk about the dignity of the human being, as the conservative would argue about the abortion of a particular person. Well, we're talking about people in general are all going to be affected.
Let me go back to abortion for a minute. The Vatican recently announced a 1-year period during the Holy Year when all priests will be allowed to formally forgive women who ask, women who've had abortions. What message is the church sending with this 1-year kind of amnesty period?
Well, this is really interesting that you bring this up, because this is very sacramental. This really doesn't have anything to do with the common good or policy. This is sacramental, meaning the church is saying that the permission is given to the priest to do that. But in America, this affects us in no way. Absolutely no effect in America, because the priests in the United States already have permission to do that. Most countries have already seek that permission. The priests seek the permission from the bishop can grant that to a diocese. Almost every diocese in the United States already has the practice for the priest to forgive that. But it is saying that with mercy, we have to recognize that something traumatic has happened in an abortion. And for the person who recognizes it as a sin, not everybody recognizes it, but for those in the church that do, there would be an easier access to reconcile with yourself, with God, and with what you've done. So it's not in any way saying that, they're loosening their teaching on abortion. As a matter of fact, it's actually the opposite. It's saying this is such a severe sin against God and against yourself and humanity, that it should be confessed. But that's a very sacramental argument, and we could talk about that at Catechism.
Well, feminist theorist Tatha Pollitt told us that she believes that having an abortion can be a moral choice of the same scale as having a child. And her argument is that the choice to end a pregnancy can be to protect the family that she already has. Can you make sense of that with the church's teaching?
Yeah, the church is very clear. It's always for us immoral for the Catholic teaching. And you can end a pregnancy without killing the child. Like in New Mexico, the big controversy with the late-term abortion. I mean, because of the laws, in practicality, only 3 states in the U.S. Allow it in some form. Only 3 states, only 3 countries in the world allow late-term abortion. And I'm using that as an example. There's many, many other cases, but in that example. But you can end a pregnancy without killing the baby on a child that's 7, 8, or a full term, you know. So our argument is
You mean through adoption?
Well, what I'm saying is you can end the pregnancy by delivering the baby. You know, you don't have to, but what we're doing here in many cases, that you're killing the baby by a choice of killing the baby, rather than, you can still have the baby, maybe the baby will die, but you can end a pregnancy if a person's life is at threat in late term by delivering the baby, C-section or natural delivery. So that right away shows the complication and the moral level there, and she's generalizing it. And it is very complicated, you know. But the thing is that for the Catholic Church, not everybody believes this, but for the Catholic teaching, we believe that viable baby is protected by the Constitution of the United States. You know, that's a human being for us. When does life begin? When that DNA can be read and there's a beating heart, you know, there's conception. It's an act. And watch it. Watch how it acts. It's going to act like a human being all the way through, from conception to natural death. Same reason the Pope was pleading about the clemency for this woman in Georgia. You know, the Church in New Mexico has had one great success. We repealed the death penalty. But the same reason that the Church goes to the legislature, to the public square with our opinion, it's only opinion, we're there to propose, not impose. But the same way that we go there to argue about the death penalty is the same reason we would say about all human life. So the Church is consistent. We fight with both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, and the gospel crosses the aisles.
Critics say opponents of abortion say they're pro-family, but in reality do very little to support women and families. Catholic Charities in New Mexico do a lot, but what more do you think the Church could do to support women and children?
Oh my gosh, we have one in front of us, the constitutional amendment to fund early childhood. This is a very moral issue. We have the 2nd largest permanent fund in the nation, okay? We have the 33rd largest fund in the world. We got close to $16 billion, and we can't fund programs like home visiting that deals with the prenatal issues, child-assisted child care, high quality child care, pre-K, and our state keeps saying no to that, and we can't spend 1%. There is some, and that's why the Church has made that one of its #1 issues to advocate for. We could spend that and there wouldn't be one new dime on taxes. It is money that's already generated. And it goes back to our environment, from gas and oil, from properties that were seized from Native Americans and Spanish and Mexican land grants, you know. These are the people's land, it's the people's money, and the people support it. Even the Albuquerque Journal's poll, Brian Sandroff, you know, 77% of New Mexicans support spending that 1%. This we can do for women. Have for them a home visitor that journeys with them through the prenatal. And this is where you get rid of abortion. You know, if we're with you and we journey with you for 3 years, like St. Joe's. St. Joe's has a program, follows somebody for 3 years, once a week for 3 years with a curriculum and connection to resources. What causes the abortion? Lack of health care, food security, homelessness, the fears, all these things that create a fear in us. Those issues have to be addressed too.
I want to finish up with one more question about the Pope. Although some conservatives, as you mentioned, have criticized Francis for his positions on income inequality, climate change, and immigration, he has generally seemed reluctant to stoke the fires of the American culture wars. Do you think we'll see the Pope make some more moves that complicate our image of him?
Well, Francis is amazing, and he's chosen the name of St. Francis, you know, of Assisi, Francis. And if you get to know Francis of Assisi, you better be ready for surprises. And St. Francis all along the way surprised us. And so the Holy Father is going to challenge us. This is just the beginning. This is the hello. This is the greeting, coming to America first time. But he is going to challenge, because the American companies that are dominating the world, we have to look at how are we using the resources of the world, and what does profit really mean? And that challenges the American way of life. I went out and read Laudato Si that the Holy Father wrote, went out and bought an electric car. Now I came to work today in an electric car. I don't know if I'm going to get home on it, because you got to plug this thing every minute of the day. You got to have that plugged in or you're not going anywhere. But we have to make sacrifices. We have to start thinking about, do I need to cruise around that block or not? The poor cruisers are the ones going to be attacked the most. Change has to come, and it is a crucial time. And the Holy Father is saying this to all of us. We were made with a dignity, and God gave us that. But God's not abandoning us, and He's with us in this struggle that some are denying, but it doesn't go away because you deny it. We have to face this. We have issues in front of us, complicated issues, and it's going to take everyone. So we say He's a pope for everyone today, because He's calling everybody to the table, because you and I might have a different religion, might have a different ideology, different politics, but one thing we have in common is we all live in the same home. We have a common home, our sister, Mother Earth.
Alan Sanchez, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.